Okay. Good morning. My name is Otakuye Conroy-Ben. I think I've had a chance to talk with most of the students. I am Oglala Lakota from Pine Ridge, South Dakota. So it's on the border of Nebraska. I have never really come to this part of Nebraska. I know the other side of the state pretty well, the Scottsbluff Alliance area. I'm honored to be here. Thank you, Dr. Cordelius, for inviting me. I often do get to talk with Native students quite a bit about my journey. It's pretty, straightforward and uneventful, but I have learned lessons along the way, sometimes the hard way, and I'd like to share my experience with you. I've also been asked to talk about, more about the mission of this program, which is, trying to get the 2-year degree students into the 4-year degree program. So I'll be talking a little bit about that. I know that most of you here are maybe on the upper end of your 4-year degree, maybe even starting grad school. And I'll also talk about maybe if you're making that transition, how to select that next step. So I'm at Arizona State University. I'm an assistant professor in environmental engineering. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm trying to do 2 different things. This. Okay. So I like to start off my talks with, when I'm talking to academic groups, mainly about the state of American Indians in higher education, particularly in STEM. So there are numerous studies and reports that have been published on how many degrees we are seeking, what degrees are we pursuing, are we going beyond associates and bachelors. So these are some of the resources I'll be citing. I can't get away from my laptop. I'm pressing forward on this and I shouldn't. And this is one of those studies that have come out comparing the different degrees that are broken down by the different ethnicities. And I want us to focus on American Indian. So at the associate's level, in this particular report, they tracked students in the year 2000, 2003, and then 10 years later to see the numbers, if they were increasing or decreasing. And this is just overall degrees. It's not broken down by major. So, back in 2002, there were about 7,400 students pursuing, or degrees that were awarded at the associate's level. And what they've observed is that there's an increase. Okay, that's great. More American Indians are pursuing higher education. Same trend was observed with the bachelor's degree, where we have maybe closer to 10,000 students getting a bachelor's degree, and then 10 years later, there is an increase. So that's great, right? And what are students studying? As I know, there are a couple community, the Indian Community College students here. When you're looking at your bachelor's degrees, this is where we lie as a population. So most American Indians are pursuing social sciences degrees, psychology and computer science, and we have lower numbers in the hard sciences and engineering, which has been historically the trend. And then this report actually broke down women and men. And looking at sciences and engineering, more women are pursuing sciences and more men are pursuing engineering. Okay. And then looking beyond the bachelor's and associates and bachelor's. In this particular report that looked at 2011 data, it broke down engineering degrees. Okay, so I'm an engineer. I tend to focus on these engineering statistics. And basically, American Indians are still a sliver of the pie. Bachelor's degrees, we make up 0.5% of the degrees. And then master's and PhD, a little less than that. Okay, so I like to throw this up because as you're thinking about your four-year degree, you will be getting a paycheck soon. And I know students are always interested in, what can I expect? When I graduated from college, I did come out with a lot of debt. I went to a private school that offered student loans. So I thought, how am I going to pay for this? I need a decent paying job. And you can see that there's a range of salaries here, but definitely the four-year degree is going to get you a bump in your salary. Engineers in the technical fields, they do tend to pay more. And the, I guess, more liberal communications, softer sciences are at the lower end of this scale. I always get sad when some of my students, they graduate from their four-year degree and they end up with a higher salary than what I'm making now.
It is crazy.
Okay, so I want to talk, so that's the status of American Indians in education and engineering and science. The numbers are improving, but we still have quite a bit of ways to go. I obviously would like to see more Americans in engineering, but it's not for everyone. I think what's important is, as professionals at this level, that we do support students in whatever field that they choose. So I do want to talk a little bit about my story and how I ended up where I am today. When I was in high school, and I went to high school in Rapid City, South Dakota. And when I was in high school, I was a really good student. I was taking advanced placement, chemistry and physics. I had finished all my math by my sophomore year. So I really excelled in the sciences. And I received offers from multiple universities. And I ended up choosing the University of Notre Dame because I wanted to get out of South Dakota. I wanted to see the world. I wanted a top-notch education. And after visiting the campus, I decided that's where I want to go. Now, going there was a huge culture shock because I'm not Catholic. This is a Catholic private institution. Everyone is very wealthy there. There were maybe 20, 25 Native American students in the whole university of 10,000. So I went from this very Native-centric place where it was part of my everyday life, the culture, to a place where they had never met any Native Americans. Parents were writing tuition checks for $25,000. And I think my family income at that time, we were probably on the poverty line. I come from really humble roots. So it was very, very different. It's a football school, much like University of Nebraska.
We're better than they are.
I think everyone is. Our record is like 2-6 right now this season. So I think everyone's better than Notre Dame this season. And so you get thrown into this football Catholic culture, and it was fun and exciting. I learned a lot about myself, and it was great. I really connected with other Native students. We had a tight-knit group. When I was there, I was a pre-med major. My parents put a lot of pressure on me to be a doctor because I was, the smart girl in the community. That's what you do. So I was pre-med, and I found out that I prefer to work in the lab. I'm more introverted. And so I ended up changing my major to chemistry. I had excelled in chemistry in high school, and so I pursued that here, and I just loved it. I was one of 4 chemistry majors in my class. It wasn't a popular major. We had really small chemistry class sizes, which was probably helped me excel. But in other classes, I was probably one of 300, so it varied. I finished my degree in 4 years. During that time, I had done some summer research, which really confirmed my decision. Like I said, I did come out with a lot of student loans because it was a private institution, but I think it was worth it because the University of Notre Dame name, when they see that on your resume, people do notice it. And it has helped me in certain areas just get my foot in the door. So I want to talk more about how I ended up on the research path. And at this level in your undergrad career, you should really be thinking about doing research on top of your studies. So when I was a sophomore, I did some summer research at the University of Colorado, and this was in a genetics lab. It was part of the Native American Alcohol Research Center. In this lab, the researchers were looking at the genetic basis for alcoholism. And so in this lab, what they had done was use a mouse model. They had bred mouse to be alcoholic and another strain to be non-alcoholic. Just through different behavioral studies, they were able to figure this out. So it's really interesting on that aspect. So what we did was we got the DNA from the mice and then we sequenced it and looked for differences in the gene sequence. And we checked to see if there were differences in the protein and if those proteins were involved in alcohol metabolism. So it wasn't the type of research I wanted to do, but I did enjoy the research itself. And this was the reason why I switched out of pre-med and why I wanted to go into research. I ended up going back for a second summer to the same lab, and then they hired me after I graduated from college. And with that, I got some publications out of it, which helped me with my graduate application. And I also, started to develop those relationships with mentors. And this was a really positive experience. What also came out of this was I realized I did not like animal studies. I did have to sacrifice some mice. And that I didn't like molecular biology or chemistry. And so I actually thought, what can I do with my chemistry degree? I ended up at the University of Arizona. I worked in that lab for 2 years, and then I went back to graduate school. The chemistry portion I really loved. I wanted it to be applicable and relevant, and I wanted it to touch on something that was important to me. So when I was growing up on the reservation in Pine Ridge, I did come from one of those communities where there was no running water, no electricity. I had to go out there and pump buckets when I was really, really young. And when you do that, you really appreciate water. And this water came straight from the ground. It was delicious, had that mineral taste. Nowadays, water has to be disinfected, it's chemically treated, and it doesn't taste the same. And with that, I really became passionate about the environment at a young age. So I wanted to apply my chemistry degree to the environment, so I looked at environmental engineering programs. So I went to the University of Arizona back in 2000. I got a master's degree in environmental engineering. And in that degree, what I was studying was wastewater. So I'm a wastewater engineer. I was looking at wastewater pollution, When we dump stuff in our sewer, when we use the facilities, all that goes to a treatment plant. And there's chemicals in there that don't get broken down. So pharmaceuticals, female hormones, illegal drugs end up in the sewer. These chemicals don't get broken down. They get discharged back in the environment and they become a part of our water cycle. So I studied those pollutants. They're called organic micropollutants. And I'll throw up a slide in a little bit. So when I was studying that, I realized that that's a really important issue in the Southwest and in more arid parts of the world, because these communities are having to face the aspect of reusing that water. The San Francisco Peaks in northern Arizona, I know there's a couple NAU folk here. There is a ski resort on there called Snowbowl, and that resort is they were looking at expansion. So they had to bring in more snow, and they're going to use reclaimed water for that snowmaking, which is basically just wastewater. So there were some issues with that. Many of the tribes opposed it for environmental and cultural reasons. So that's where my research ties in. There's that end of the issue. There's also the other end where tribes are welcoming reclaimed water. There's the Gila River tribe in South Phoenix, where they have traded their Colorado River water rights for reclaimed water. And they're going to use that reclaimed water for irrigation. And so in that aspect, we're also researching how these organic pollutants end up in the soil and then back in the food chain, possibly. So it's really, really interesting. Where the chemistry comes into play is we look at the analytical side, how to measure these chemicals in soil, matrices, and in water. So along the way, I still like chemistry. So I ended up getting a second master's in chemistry, and then I pursued my PhD there. Graduated in 2006. This is one of my closest friends, Dr. Carletta Chief, who's now an assistant professor at University of Arizona. So we were classmates at U of A.
She's in hydrology.
Yeah, she's in hydrology and soil sciences.
Yeah. I think I've met her.
Yeah, she's well known. Okay, and after grad school, I ended up working as a wastewater engineer at one of the largest treatment facilities in the world in Los Angeles. And I worked there for about a year. I just wanted some practical engineering experience. And it was quite interesting. I was an odor engineer, so that stinky smell coming from sewers, I was responsible for treating that. A lot of atmospheric chemistry, sulfur chemistry. What I missed was the flexibility of research, doing my own research, so I went back into academia. I pursued a postdoc. I went back to the University of Arizona. A postdoc is where you get just a few more years of specialized training after your PhD. So I did a postdoc in molecular biology and biochemistry, just to learn something different. I got away from the engineering, went back to the science. And at the time, I was also teaching at Pima Community College in Tucson. I wanted that teaching experience to really see if this was the direction I wanted to go with my career. It was. I enjoy working with students. I enjoy the teaching. I enjoy the research. And I got my first faculty job at the University of Utah. I was there about 4 or 5 years. I learned quite a bit there, but I ended up being very unhappy there. And I decided to leave. So I ended up at Arizona State University. If you are looking at the academic field, it's different from the, I guess, technical government positions. I do teaching. You have to teach. So I teach both undergrads and graduate students on the environmental engineering side, so intro to environmental engineering, groundwater remediation, so we have a polluted site, how do we treat that? And then contaminant ban transport. We have to research. That's a huge part of it. So writing grants, writing papers, mentoring students, bringing students into our lab. I've mentored a number of American Indian students in summer research positions. And then service, university service. You have to work with national organizations. ACE is a big part of my life. I was on the board of directors. I'm the ACE's chapter advisor, and various other aspects of ACES I've been involved in. And then this is just a slide that really summarizes my research. So I'm looking at these pharmaceuticals and other organic pollutants that are found in water. And this has been known for decades. I don't know why the AP is just focusing on it now. But these chemicals are found in our drinking water systems at really, really low levels. You have to drink like 1,000 liters a day, which is impossible. But to get any type of, pharmaceutical effect. However, researchers will admit that no one knows what the long-term effects of drinking these low levels of chemicals daily are. So these chemicals are, they cover different classes. You can find caffeine. Caffeine is a good indicator of wastewater pollution in water. The lining of Teflon pans. These are perfluorinated chemicals, long-chain hydrocarbons. These are found in water, and they're actually being found in human tissue, in breast milk, in lipids. The chemical up top, this is really, it's like the core of my research. This is the human hormone. What these human hormones are doing is, and hormone mimics, is when we dump them down the drain or when we urinate. These hormones are present at really low concentrations, but they're enough to cause biological activity in animals. So they've discovered that fish living near wastewater facilities are turning female. The male fish are turning female, they're producing eggs. Fish populations are being wiped out. So those are called endocrine disruptors, and that's my specialty. And I look at, if we recycle water, are we removing these endocrine disruptors? Because they're nanogram per liter, very, very, very small concentrations. And so this is, Stan was talking about, you need to love what you do, and I love what I do. I like doing this research and working with communities. Just last month, I went down to New Zealand. There is a Maori tribe where their lake is being polluted by wastewater. It's been polluted for decades. And these treatment facilities are just now deciding that they should start to clean up their waste a little bit more. So I went out there as a consultant to assess the situation, present them data so they can make an informed decision on what to do. So this research of this line of work does take me to different communities. It takes me around the world. I get to present at different conferences. I was also in Australia. I made it a 2-part trip. Where I presented my research at one of the, international organizations. So that's really what I do. I know it was all thrown in a nutshell. Some lessons learned I'll throw up in the end. But I was asked to talk about this. So choosing an undergraduate transfer program. You can also, where you see undergraduate transfer, choosing a graduate program. Okay, so there are different factors that come into play when you are looking at this next step in your educational pathway. Location, what type of degree, can your courses transfer? I think that's a topic later today. And of course, your finances. Okay, location. like I said, so this is where I'm from, right? There's Nebraska. I said I wanted to get away from home. I just wanted to experience something new. And what was, I guess, good about that is I didn't have all my family distractions. Because I have drama in my family. And I wanted to, it was allowed me to just focus on school. I did get homesick. I was quite homesick my first year, being away. If you decide to stay local, I know that some of the students in here are close to home. You do have your support system nearby. Your friends may end up where you are at, which is also good. You can, ride the path together. Also, if you're home, you can usually end up saving money if you're going, if you're using your in-state tuition, or if you're living at home. Those definitely alleviate the stress along the way. I think there are 2 students in here who are at the community college or tribal college level. Do you plan to move to the 4-year degree?
Yeah, I'm set up to start back at Wayne State in the spring.
Where's Wayne State?
It's north.
All right, Wayne State.
It's the eastern part of
Yeah.
Nebraska, so it's probably about 40 minutes from here.
It's about
40 minute drive.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Have you decided what you're going to study yet?
Actually, I was going to meet with an advisor because like I said, I had 2 associates already, with
Yeah.
one with early childhood and then the other one human services. And so I just wanted to talk to an advisor and try to get a plan because I'm not sure which one I really want to pursue. I'd like to be able to mix them both because I work with behavioral children in a treatment facility as well.
Oh, great.
But I also seen like the same kind of temperaments in the Head Start kids when I worked there.
Okay.
So I think behavioral services within the Head Start would be something that I would like to try to do, but I just got to get the education to go back.
No, that's definitely needed. Yeah. And you said you're almost finished with your associates. Do you know what your next steps are yet?
So they got a college for my bachelor's.
Mm-hmm. You have a set plan yet?
Not a set place. I want to move out to New York, actually.
Excellent. That's great. Okay, so the next few slides may be tailored more towards you. However, for the others that are looking at graduate degrees, this is also somewhat relevant. So, I think that, as you look towards these 4-year degrees, you're at what's the name of the school?
Nebraska-Lincoln Community College.
Nebraska-Lincoln Community College. You want to see if that has any partnerships with local universities. So oftentimes they do. In my part of the country, the local community colleges are Tohono O'odham. It's down in Sells, down by the Mexican border. And then there's Diné College on the Navajo Reservation. And they have partnerships with several different universities. And specifically with ASU, there's this transfer admission guarantee where if you take certain core courses and you finish at associates, you're automatically admitted into ASU, which is a really nice feature. And ASU also has partnerships with other community colleges, and there are these agreements between them. So there's many community colleges in Phoenix, and then statewide, like Pima Community College in Tucson, and other Gila Community College. So check to see if there are those agreements in place because it can definitely save you years when you get your bachelor's degree. Does your school have an agreement with University of Nebraska? or do you know?
Yeah, we have, I know we do transfer credits to like another community college, Northeast Community College. The Wayne State has a partnership with them, like Bellevue, and there's a few others that are all local that'll take credits from us.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's a good feature, but don't think that's the only way. I mean, if you do want to go to a different university, that there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Okay, so then you're absolutely on the right path. You're going to meet with the counselor. You know, which path shall I take? So ASU has all this set up, and I actually encourage you to visit this site, even though you won't go to ASU, is to seek out what degree is good for you, and maybe later I'll show you on the website. If you go to this website, there's this little, I guess, link that says play the game. Oh, okay. Let's see if we can do this. Oh. Okay. So ASU just it's a monster of a university, like 80,000 students. It's crazy. But they have a whole section on, one of their missions is providing access to anyone who wants to pursue a degree. And so they have a big transfer section. If you go down here, I did this last night. We won't do it here. I'll just enter an email address. Oh, maybe I won't because we can't do that. Anyways, if you play this game, it has 60 icons for you to click through based on your interests. So we'll throw up like a beaker or an art project, and you just click on which one you prefer. But if you go through these 60 different screens, at the end it'll spit out a major for you. But it's 60. I did it last night. It took forever.
Maybe I should take that.
Yeah, me too.
It actually was quite fun. I think it said I should get into the technical field, which was not surprising. But your counselor at whatever institution you want to go to will definitely help you navigate that. Okay, so I'll get out of this. Okay, so you're going to meet with the counselor. ASU has their whole counseling team just on transfer. Okay, and then you're going to have a specific topic on this later this afternoon, what will transfer. So it's good to know what you want to major in, obviously. And if you can take those courses at your community college, they're going to be cheaper. They're going to have a lower student to teacher ratio. And if that's important to you, that'll help you succeed. If you can get those prerequisites out of the way, that'll also help you down the road. And then you want to select courses that will transfer. Like when it comes to engineering, it's good to make sure you're in the right math, because not all the math credits will transfer to that university. And then you'll have, I'm sure you have degrees mapped out at the university you plan to attend. And then financial aid. Your tribal college, community college, those courses will generally be more affordable than at the university. If you're on Pell Grant, recognize that that's only good for 6 years. So if you already used that a couple years, those funds may run out by the time you finish your degree. And then look at your scholarships. Some institutions have transfer student scholarships. I know they had that at the University of Utah. In your major, each college will have their own scholarships. And then look at the American Indian College Fund. That, I guess it's like a central repository for just information. They also grant scholarships. And they also have like the large, I guess 4-year granting scholarships like the Gates Foundation, which is ending soon, or may have ended. But they have funds like that. So make sure you get your financial aid forms in. Those are due January, February. And apply for the scholarships. There's no need for you to be, working 30, 40 hours a week and trying to balance your schoolwork. There's funds out there. If you do have to work, I would recommend working in your field. I did undergraduate research in chemistry because I knew that's what I wanted to do. If you want to do education, childhood education, maybe look in those areas. Okay, and then so once you get to your institution that you like, and this holds for those looking at graduate school, you need your support network. In grad school, I tended to hang out with students in my field of study, just because we did homework together, we researched together. The different organizations help build your resume. Get involved in ACEs or whatever other organization is in your field. Definitely meet with your professors. If you're in these classes of 300, I've never taught a class that big. I taught a class of 100, but I did not know every student. I wish I did. I did know the students who came to my office. Okay. And it's good to put a name to the face, especially when you're assigning grades. And then visit the office hours, seek help when you need it. When I was at Notre Dame, I should have done that more. I was really strong in science and math. I was very weak in my writing. And I tended to do poorer in those classes, and I should have maybe gone to a writing tutor. And pursue those internships and research experiences as an undergrad. Those open doors, and they help you figure out what you want to do with your life. Okay, and then I can answer questions on anything. This is my family. This is my mom and dad. They're back in South Dakota. This is she's 4 years old now. This is Wayuita. And I just had a baby. Not just 10 months ago. She's almost a year old. And this is my husband. His name's Colin, and he's a researcher at ASU. So it's more lessons learned along the way. It's been a challenge trying to balance the academic career, which is challenging itself, but with the family and being the new mom. I don't get much sleep, but it's all worth it. I have my own schedule. I get to pursue what I want, and I get to work with students. So.
What does he do researching?
So he works for the Center on American Indian Education.
Oh, okay.
Yes. And he's also a PhD student out of the University of Utah in higher education policy. He wants to be an administrator.
For higher education?
Yeah. Are there any questions? Yes.
Going back, why do you think that the Native Americans are more likely to pursue social and computer sciences and psychology over the STEM field?
I don't know. That might be an answer or question for the more experienced
I
folks.
think it's because they don't have good math in their high schools.
Okay.
And I think that is a serious problem.
It-
Just like African Americans in inner city don't have good math. So it makes it more difficult when they go to college to do any math.
A lot of times, just in general, find students at that middle school, we were talking about earlier, at the middle school make the choice to not pursue math and science unless they're encouraged to do it. And no matter who you are, if you don't make that choice to take those math and sciences, you sort of cut off a whole branch of opportunity when you get to high school and go on. And I'm not sure if that's the case here. It's just, that's a general statement. And some of the things we're trying to do as a university, as a group, is trying to get the students to make the choice, even if they go into social sciences or these other ones that have that math and science background at the high school, is an advantage anyways. And we just lose, as a community, we lose too many students at that level. It's unfortunate. And it's unfortunate even in going into community college, even if you're not going to university, going into community college, it's an advantage to have it.
I mean, most research actually comes out that's a lack of mentorship. Once they hit like higher level math and sciences, because historically more Native people were pursuing degrees in social sciences, so it's kind of like the cycle where not seeing a mentor in that position is what's discouraging a lot of students from pursuing it later on.
It's also a very large, I mean, if you think about an amplification of how bad it is, you look globally for the United States, and we as a nation don't value STEM at all. And you can see that because when I used to be a scientist at Sandia, it was rare to find an American, U.S. domestic PhD student. And the ones you did find were average. The ones that were good were everywhere else, China, etc. They were exceptional. And then you teach at the graduate level and you find out that almost everyone is not from the United States. People don't want to get a degree. And then what you find out is that the ones that are weak. And they're weak because when they came through K through 12, everything has been watered down. If it's been watered down outside and now you're looking local within your own environment, how much more is it watered down? So that means if you think you as a person, you were given a very poor diet, and that because you have such a poor diet, you're anemic, and those that are anemic don't do well, and you never find out what they possibly could do. And that's really the challenge. I mean, so what you need is more people like us, like you, that are there that become an example of where one could end up. So when Otakuye was talking, it's just amazing to see her give a talk, seeing where she is. I mean, I felt the same way when I went to Sandia and met some other people that were natives that had PhDs. Like, I never saw one before. Where are they? Wow, they can do it. And when I was at Montana State, I was the first to graduate there in chemical engineering. When I went to Virginia Tech, I was the first in chemical engineering. I think in College of Engineering as a whole when I went through. So it just changed. So you can now make a change. I mean, that's so true, and you can impact that. And that's what we're hoping that we can inspire you to really think that you can achieve those things. So you could be a bag boy like I was, and now you're here, and people sometimes have to listen to you, right?
What I liked about the talk was when you mentioned that there's a path, right? And you have a journey on this path that you take. And I thought about Japan. So in Japan, a teacher is called a sensei. And the rough translation of sensei is one who's traveled the path before. And that's what's nice about these talks, right? This is sort of what you're saying, right? If you can talk to someone who's traveled the path before, it's just that much more impactful. Right? So thank you for the talk. That was great. Any other questions?
Other questions?
Okay.